Hi there, my name is Svila Beck, and indeed the Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, and subscribe. I am joined today by a real Renaissance man, actor, writer, raconteur, foremost authority in the world, I would say, on the Dalek. That's true. Is there a foremost Dalek authority in the world other than you?
I don't know. I don't know whether I'd call myself that, but I'm a bit bonkers about them. Let's just put it that way.
But I don't think there's any. I mean, maybe was it Andrew Pixley who will know, what colour socks people wore?
Andrew will know all the details, and Toby Haydock, he knows all the details of everything, really.
Right. Yeah. But in terms of like Dalek society, Daleks do Daleks have art, for example? What do you think?
Do Daleks have art? Well, I don't know. I mean, I just think. I'm just thinking back to that Dalek book from 1964, the blue one with the big Dalek on the front and inside the invasion of the Daleks. And there's a bit, isn't there, where one of the characters sneaks into the Dalek city and somehow doesn't get spotted. And he observes various peculiar aspects of Dalek society.
Yes!
And I think there's something about them sort of inhaling smoke and kind of getting a bit high or something. It's really weird. And there's another one about a Dalek joke, and it says something like the sound of Dalek laughter followed. It wasn't pleasant, but I can't remember. I can't remember when they do art. Wow. That would be interesting. It's just lots of pictures of people being exterminated, isn't it? Really? That's a good one.
The whole idea of Dalek narcotics sounds really interesting.
I mean, I have to reread it. I haven't got my copy here, unfortunately. But the Dalek. But do you know the one? Have you ever seen it?
Yeah,
yeah. Of course you have.
Absolutely. So So. 1 second. So I guess you probably are. By the way, speaking of Dalek, I'm just nearly finishing listening to Poison of the Daleks, the new story from the
Third Doctor. Yeah.
It's an absolute corker. It is. I would say not just the best Brigadier story that Big Finish has done. It's the best Brigadier story I have ever heard. John Colcher is perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
He's doing a great job, isn't it? It's really nice, and it's nice that we could sort of take the Brigadier off world and give him a fight to fight. So that was that big speech he makes to his troops. I think it's one of the, and I really love doing the music for that, sort of trying to get a sort of rousing sort of theme coming through it. That was one of the biggest challenges for me. I mean, one of my favorite things about doing those Third Doctor adventures, for the last 2 box sets I've done the music, I nabbed that job. I just have such affection.
Isn't it? It's great.
Well, I don't always get my own way, it has to be said, but I try as much as possible. I try to do the things that I hope I can contribute to in a worthwhile way. I'm sure people would tell me if what I was doing was no good.
One would hope. But again, I don't think something that no one could really argue about is the quality of the work Big Finish does. Just because it's so broad. It's such a broad canvas you work on, and it's all so good. It's also like painfully good. It's like
good. I hope it's not too painful.
No, really, I did that. I'm looking forward to listening to the next story so I can do the review. But I just love that decentness, that British military decentness that is the core of the Brigadier. Just
very old-fashioned, isn't it? It's really seductive, that sort of thing. I love it. I love watching old movies. We've got a channel here called Talking Pictures TV, and they show lots of really old movies, some of which have very outmoded attitudes and ideas in them, which we don't subscribe to today. But I just find it fascinating. It's and looked at from that sort of distance of it just being entertaining rather than imposing its values on your life. I think I love all that old stuff.
Yeah, there's a wonderful line in it where Brigadier says to Benny, when they got these like ragtag troops, says we must do our best by them, Benton, or something. It was just so lovely. Yes. I really love that.
It's lovely, isn't it? Yeah, I like
it really is.
Yeah.
So was it? So the reason that I'm lucky enough to be chatting these days, because you've got a new release coming out. Let me throw it on the screen. The Human Frontier. So this is, I believe, your your 5th series that you've originated, but this is your first completely original work is it that Big Finish has done. Is that correct?
You mean the fourth series that I have personally done, or
Yeah,
fifth
you've
series?
done
Who's
Garlic
counting?
Empire.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's oh yeah. I suppose it might be. I don't care to
It's
count,
very
but
hard to
yes,
count. There's
yeah,
Dalek Empire, there's Cybermen, there's
yes.
Prisoner, Space 1999, and then this.
Oh, I suppose so from that point of view. Yeah. And this, as you rightly say, this is, as part of the Big Finish Originals range. It's the last one of the range, and it's so far anyway. And yeah, it's entirely, this is not based on another franchise. So it's kind of scary and exciting for
It must
me.
be
And it's,
terrifying and exciting at the same time. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Nick, I'm going to ask you. This is a weird interview because you're not going to be able to get a word in that often. But I'm going to make an appeal to the audience right now that the link is in the video notes. I would like everybody to go click that link and order this right now. I'm going to give you two really, really good reasons why. Firstly, I was trying to compile a list of work that Nick has done throughout his career, and it's too big. It's too big. But something that really struck me is just the overwhelming quality of work that he's done. I think you're kind of safe to take a punt on this one. I think we got
crossed.
the War Doctor, the Lucy Miller, Doctor Lucy Miller. You've defined so many incredible series. I think it's worth taking a punt on your on your talent. But there's one other reason where I really would like people to go and click on this. Now, I haven't heard it yet. So this is when I get it, I will review it. As you know, I will give an honest review on the channel.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, no, I look, I get my heart when I give no. It really does because I want to be able to. But I will give an honest review. But we complain a lot, especially in my little corner of fandom, the fandom menace. We complain a lot. We're grumpy a lot. We're going to be talking about this a little bit more as we go on. But there's a definite feeling of disenfranchisement for the fact that people within my little clique, my group. And so, I would love you guys just click on this link. I want you to show what a economic force that we are. I think we would be a far more recognized group if we were a bankable group. And the truth is, we are. We we did a watch along of The Chase on Saturday night. Great story, so much fun. I mentioned this interview was coming up. And the people were so touched that you would come to one of our channels. Three people renewed their memberships. The two YouTubers took down negative videos. There's so much hurt going on here. There really is. Let me, because this is something that a lot of viewers really wanted me to talk about. Is like we spent in fandom. It's been. Yeah, we spent the last few years being called terrible names, just terrible names. And I'm not saying specifically Doctor Who fan. I think across all types of fan, we've been called we can't say it on YouTube, but the Nationalist Socialists from Germany in the 1930s and all kinds of Islamophobes. And it's really, I don't think I know a racist. I really, genuinely, probably don't think I know a racist, or I really don't. And so there's been a definite feeling that the people making the stuff that we love are buying into this narrative, which is so detached from reality. So it's so touching for me personally. And also, this came out. I told everybody about this. That we had a bit of a barney. I don't normally attack people, right? It's so foreign to me to do that, but I did. And Nick,
you didn't attack me. You didn't attack me at all. You just expressed a view. And that's the thing, you see.
I really felt I was angry. I was angry.
Yeah, well, of course. Everyone can get angry. And I think everyone can express views. And the trouble is with social media, the wonderful thing about social media is that you can make contact with people who you would never normally meet before. And it can create brilliant bonds, and it can create great opportunities. There are a lot of people who've ended up working for Big Finish because they said something online and they said, oh, I can do this. And we got in touch with them, had a proper conversation, and they ended up working for us because we were able to contact them via social media. The other problem about social media is that it's all to do with, as it were, headline grabbing, isn't it? And it's not to do with proper debate. It's headlines, and and I'm as guilty of it as much as the next person. There's something I think, oh, that's interesting, or is that true? I'm not sure, and I retweet it or whatever, and it can cause offense, because there's not a proper debate. And it's really interesting that when you occasionally see instances, and I saw one recently about a woman who in this country, I can't remember her name now, isn't that awful, who had a court case to declare something illegal to do with Brexit. And there was a man who had been tweeting against her and threatening all sorts of appalling things and saying terrible, terrible things about her. And it's some months since all that happened. And someone on a TV show got the two of them together, got them both to agree to meet. And when you put two people in a room, when all their heat has gone out of an argument, just two human beings just talking, they found they had a lot in common about their backgrounds when you'd think they had nothing in common. And they found a common cause and they were reasonable. And my dear friend Jamie Anderson, who you may have heard of, I work with a lot, he talks about this as well. If only you can get people to sit down and talk with each other. I know sometimes people do argue with each other when they're just present together, but I think the trouble is that social media cuts off so many of the fundamental important things of human communication as to cause such distrust and hatred. And people do disagree about things. And I think that's what makes us human, to have different views. Right. But what social media removes from us is the ability to find common ground,
So yeah, Nick,
misunderstandings happen.
Yeah, so that's why I'm so delighted you're here. And I think that's why there was just a wall of just delight that I want to tell people. So I really think that's what counts. So it's lovely to be doing something in the other direction. Fine, so let's do some quick fire questions. Probably you won't be able to answer. Time of Victorian. So exciting. I'm so excited about it. It looks fantastic. How long have you been working on this for?
Well, it's a project that the BBC have had in mind for a number of years, actually, and it's come up several times over the last few years. But it was really middle of last year when it really sort of kicked in as a definite possibility. I assigned one of our new-ish producers, Alfie Shaw, who came to work for Big Finish, I don't know, a couple of years ago, to work on it with the BBC. So it's been going on in the background with me sort of taking note of what's going on now and again for quite some time. I mean, I can tell you one thing about it. I just wanted to clear up now, which I cleared up in the Big Finish podcast, which came out yesterday, which is that in spite of what one might think from seeing the iconic artwork, brilliant artwork by Lee Binding to sort of launch the series.
Fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. All that
artwork. It's beautiful, isn't it? I mean, he's such a talented man. Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper are not appearing in an audio adventure.
Oh, I was going to ask that. Are we going to
hear I can categorically say that is not the case. There's lots of awesome stuff, but that's not happening. And it's as well to say that now because I don't want people to.
That's what people are waiting to hear. Is there anything you can announce? Obviously not.
No. There are a couple of books already on pre-order, and we'll be announcing. The Big Finish content will be announced this month sometime. Yeah, hopefully.
Excellent. So one of the concerns that I have heard is people are worried that how much you're going to have to pay to buy into to get a substantive amount of story.
Oh well, a really important thing to say about it is that each individual bit of it works as a piece of entertainment in its own right. So you could potentially, I mean, obviously, I think you get a more enhanced experience if you have all the other stuff. But one of the aims right from the start by the BBC, and I think quite rightly so, they're very responsible about this, is that you could just get one element of it. You could just get one audio or one comic book or one book, and you would get a satisfying experience from that. So you don't have to get it all. You're not compelled to. You're not. Right. Yeah. So
you don't works
both ways.
We do feel we do have to get it. A lot of people have to get it. But,
well, that's.
I do. I think people have also been very conscientious about it. That's why I was kind of surprised about this. Really, it's although there's a wonderful story about how Russell T Davies saved Big Finish. It's on one of the DVDs for the same reason. Yeah. Right. So, although if you were able to put out an announcement the day after they did the Journey's End watch along, but the feeling was so high. You could have just backed up a money truck, and you would have so many orders. But alas, what can you do? Fine. So it's okay. So Chris Eccleston will not be in it tomorrow. People, any chance of getting them back?
Something we've tried for several times, but the rights issues are so difficult to track, and we're every now and again we try again, but we thought that after, I can't remember the American channel that did
Right.
a revamp, after that stopped, we thought there might be an opportunity then, but nothing's happened so far.
I guess, okay, but it's all recorded that last season. Again, it's a real shame because I love that.
They did, yeah. I mean, we had, for those who don't know, we had the license for some time to do the Tomorrow People based on the original Thames television series, and I think it's Fremantle who own the rights. But yeah, and then the license went because they wanted to develop it as a TV series in America.
Right,
that was on for a season, and well, we haven't yet been able to. I mean, how much I know those, I believe those stories were recorded, whether they were edited or not, I don't know. And whether whether all the material still survives, because, individual sound designers have these little hard drive crashes.
Oh, right. That is true.
So who knows whether it's all still there? I don't know.
Tragic though, because it was really building up to it. That was the season that all the plot threads were coming together.
I know, and we did try to keep it going, but when rights issues occur, it's the big boys, it's the lawyers. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely, I understand. Callan, what happened to the second release of Callan? I love that first. Where's the
well, what happened to the second release of Callan is that Ben Miles suddenly seemed to have it written into his contract that he had to be in every TV series ever made. So he suddenly became completely unavailable, and he really wanted to do it again, and his agent kept saying, "Oh, I think I've got a gap, so we'd be ready to do it." And then of course Frank Skinner went on his national tour, but in this small respect, lockdown has benefited us, and so we have managed to track them down. That's an exclusive, I'm telling you here. So the recording has been done. I don't know what the release date is yet, so I've had a great time recording remotely as Hunter, the head of the service.
Yeah. In fact, I can pull it up so to show people, because if you haven't heard this release, it's an absolute corker.
It's one of my favorite things that Big Finish has done. I think the scripts are amazing, actually, because they are absolutely what they should be. They're so authentic, they're so beautifully crafted, and such a pleasure to act. Loved it, absolutely loved it.
Well, that's something I'm just trying to pull up the screen. That's something I always loved about Callan on the TV, and this is identical. That it was just scintillatingly good writing. It's some of the best, especially spy genre fiction, and it's if you watch it today, stands up as well as it. So listen, everybody else, after you finish putting Human Frontier in your car, go over to Callan. I think you've got a free one, don't you?
There might be a free first episode or something.
You know what?
It's an excerpt. There you are. Look, there it is. Yeah.
Just get the full release. It is so worth it. It is. It's 4 stories. Nick's in it as Hunter, doing your very well-known posh voice. I do like your. It's
right. I'm terribly posh for it. Yes, that's right.
And cast perfectly. I mean, you got Frank Skinner as Lonely. That's a role that I really didn't think you'd ever be able to fulfill. By the way, that's something else I want to talk to you. Your casting is fantastic. Graham Garden as a meddling monk. Who had that idea?
I think that was Barnaby Edwards, actually, who was doing the casting for the 8th Doctor adventures at that point. Yeah. Right. Barney's an amazing casting director. He's an amazing director, actor, and writer. But he's a great casting director. If I had the budget to employ him full time as the casting director, I would. But I don't, so I can't. And anyway, he's busy doing 1 million audiobooks a day.
Well, that's a problem. There is a lot of product you put out. Graham Garden stopped being Meddling. Meddling Monk is a character that's really been rehabilitated, I think, on Big Finish. But then you moved to Rufus Hound. Why'd you stop using Graham Garden?
I think there was an availability issue to do with personal issues or something.
So Rufus Hound, if you haven't heard any of the Rufus Hound Meddling Monk, that is fantastic. That's a true triumph for Big Finish. It really is.
It's the great thing that when a character is a Time Lord, if there are availabilities difficulties, you can just go, oh, well, they regenerated, didn't they? You know, so that works out quite nicely, and also gives you a lot of variety. I mean, we did that with the Time Lord character Straxus as well. You know, various incarnations of Straxus.
The trouble with Strax. That's did you write that one?
What? No, Straxus, not Drax.
Oh, so Drax. I think it's
no, Straxus is an Eighth Doctor Time Lord's character. No, I didn't write the Trouble with Drax. That was John Dorney. That's an amazing script. Yeah, Drax from what was that story on television called? The last one of the Key to Time. Why can't I remember?
I know it every time.
The Armageddon Factor. Armageddon out of here. Yeah. Yes.
I'll say every time you I mean, you would know, you do podcasts. Every time you record a stream, you will forget things that you know at your fingertips. It just happens.
Well, it's old age as well, Svi. It's old age. Yes.
It certainly doesn't help. Crowdfunding. That's something I think Big Finish only has done once with that short movie with Lou Jameson. What's the name of that movie?
Mark Gatiss.
Right. Oh yes, I forgot he was in it.
He was in it. Yeah. I was in it. I got shot at the beginning. I just look up and get shot in the face. Well, luckily, you're spared the gore. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a whole other thing, isn't it? That's a whole other model. I mean, you could argue that when we put things on pre-order, that's a little bit like crowdfunding. Because, that enables us to pay for the production, really, or get the money back we've just spent on making some incredibly expensive production. You know, so it's a little bit, but yeah, it's certainly something that Jason Haig-Ellery, our chairman, has talked about at length many times about the possibility of crowdfunding.
You do very well, especially if you combine it. The thing that's really doing well in crowdfunding now is comic books, graphic novels. If you would put out, well, you have to be a licensing issue. If you would put out a Jagon Lightfoot graphic novel, for example, like you did that final season as a comic book and put it like that, you would do very well with that. You would, I think you would do very, very well.
I think you put your finger on it. I think there's a licensing issue. That's something we would have to talk to the BBC about.
Oh, right. Okay. Robert
I don't know what the specific issues would be, but that, you know, if that proposal came to me in a Big Finish meeting, I'd say that's a conversation we have to have with the BBC. I think, you know, because they are the owners, and we're playing in their sandpit, and quite rightly we have to play by their rules. Quite rightly.
Well, yeah, it is a drawback being professional, that you have to be professional.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing some of the things that get done, you know, on Instagram and really on Twitter. You know, you think, oh, why couldn't we can't do that, because a whole licensing issue comes up.
Right.
You know, if people want to do stuff for fun and it's fan activity, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Well, those tweet-alongs that Emily Cook started, they've been incredible, absolutely incredible.
Well, as I said to her the other day, I've been touting around that she, you know, should be the first president of Earth.
Okay, that's fair enough.
She said, "Yes, I've heard you've been saying this."
Yes. So, you know, I definitely think that's good enough. I have a question from Dan Hadley, who runs the Type 40 podcast. He would like to know, if you were caught in some horrible ring modulator accident and you lost a hand and you had to have some kind of Dalek appendage, would you go for a sucker, a claw, or one of those new little blowtorchy claw things from the 2005 Dalek bomb? What would you go for? Or one of the Perceptor ones? You know.
What ones?
The little Perceptor ones. I was on the train.
Oh right. Oh yeah. Of course, Perceptor readings, all that. Yeah. Goodness me. Well, obviously, this is not an ideal situation you're talking about here. I don't want to lose one of my hands, arms, whatever. Because they're so handy, as the Doctor said in the Ark in Space. Is it? No, it's not the Ark in Space. It's Revenge of the Cybermen. How can I forget a quote from Revenge of the Cybermen? I suppose the sucker actually gets a bad rap. I think the sucker can do all sorts of things if only you use a bit of CGI. I think it's quite can manipulate a lot more than it appears to. So I'd go for the sucker. Yeah. The sucker's much more dexterous, especially 2005 onwards. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, with a bit of CGI, the sucker's great.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good. So, Nick, I'd like to. How would you define yourself? How do you go? Do you think you're more of an actor, a writer? How do you view yourself?
Well, that is a question that I'm really bad at answering. I mean, I've always said that if you, figuratively speaking, put a gun to my head, I would, and said you have to choose. I suppose I always used to say I would choose actor because that's what I was trained as. I went to drama school and studied and got a degree in theatre arts and what have you. And I just, I suppose, I'm not quite sure now though, because you see, I was having a conversation with an actor the other day. Funny enough, the actor who plays one of the leads in The Human Frontier, Pepto Lunkose, she said she's an actor, but she's also doing some writing. And she said, maybe I should just give up this acting thing and concentrate more on the writing and be serious about it. And I said, well, whoa there, because I think that, they're all part of the same thing. I know this sounds like one of those, smart aleck catch-all answers, but I really do believe that it's all part of the same thing. And if you can do it, if you have ability in that direction, it's all to do with telling a story. And if you do it by speaking other people's words, speaking your own words, doing something, in dance. I'm not going to be doing that, don't worry, viewers. Nick Briggs does some expressionistic dance. No, it's not going to happen. I realize I say these things and they can be edited out and used out of context. It's just
I won't get in trouble.
Yeah, other people will do it though, mate. And why not? It's all good fun. So really writing a script, doing some music, directing some actors, producing a series, organizing it, making it happen in the first place. They're all part of the same process. They're just different bits in the journey, I think. So I don't know how to define myself really. It's okay. The bloke who does all those things, I suppose. I just love it all.
Man, it's I think it's I mean, do you deal with the cover designs as well?
Well, I don't do them, but I certainly approve them. I mean, all the, my role is creative director at Big Finish. I'm also executive producer as well. But right. So being creative director, that means I have the final responsibility for all creative elements. Now, a lot of that responsibility I delegate out to other people, sometimes because I'm just too darn busy, but other times because I feel that other people are more skilled at what the particular job. I do see the Dark Shadows covers, but I know very little about Dark Shadows. So my attitude to things like that is, if you guys like this and think this is good, then I'm happy. Sometimes I'll say, well, I'm not sure. I'm not talking about Dark Shadows in particular. I'm just talking about anything. Sometimes I say, I'm having a problem with that element of the cover. And but if you can convince me that there's a good reason why that's there, or why you think I'm wrong, then I'm happy to go with your judgment. Whereas something that I'm frontline invested in, that maybe I've written and directed, or just directed, or you know what I mean, been involved with right from the beginning in a very detailed way, I might be a little bit more, dare I say, prescriptive on that. Say, no, I'm not having that. I really need you to change this to make it better. But there is that. A former showrunner of the TV series, whose name will remain anonymous here, but you've got a 50-50 chance of guessing, haven't you? Said to me, part of the job as showrunner of Doctor Who on the television, you just see so much stuff shooting past you that's not right, and he said, like, every minute there's 12 things that go wrong, and you've got to work out which thing you catch, because nothing is ever ideal. And you can imagine with Big Finish, we release so much. I have to decide constantly the level of my involvement in any specific project. But yes, I do look at all the covers. I do listen to all the trailers. I do read all the storylines, so there's a lot that takes up a lot of my time. But I'm looking like, oh, that's a big thing. Listen, it's lovely, isn't it? If you love stories and you love Doctor Who, then it's a dream job, and I'm extremely lucky to be in this position. And it's all really down to luck. Hopefully when the luck put me where I am, I've got the requisite skills to be able to do it. I just realized I'm holding the top of a beer bottle. That's a bit like that. Is that what gets me through the day? It's because I was having a drink with my podcast co-host Benji Clifford last night with an interesting gluten-free beer. Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I will put Nick's the link to Nick's podcast. But you have two podcasts. You have The Big Finish podcast and the Benji and Nick show, right?
Well, yeah, Benji and I do the Big Finish podcast, which is all full of loads of news and clips and previews and interviews and stuff. But also we, for our own entertainment and hopefully anyone else's, we do the Benji and Nick show, which is all about classic cult vintage TV. Most weeks we pick up.
It's absolutely tons of fun. We just have a laugh.
It's great fun, and Benji is such a lovely human being. Ever since I first interviewed him for a podcast, I thought, I just want to spend more time chatting to this guy. He's great. We speak to each other most days, either on email or WhatsApp. So that's what another brilliant thing that comes about the luck of doing this job is that you discover people who, because you get to a certain age and you sort of think, oh, maybe I just know all the people I'm going to know from now. I'm not going to meet new friends, but I do. I meet new people and get to know them and form great friendships with them. So, like Jamie Anderson, for example, as well, who I don't know when I met Jamie. It was, I don't know, 5 years ago, something like that. It seems like forever because we know each other so well now. And again, communicate every single day in some form or another, usually, in a tea break. One of the other of us sends a message saying "Bants," yes, and we're on FaceTime having a bit of banter.
I was enjoying his lunches. His lunches made a special appearance on the Big Finish podcast quite a few times. You kept calling him, and he was in the middle of cooking. And it sounded quite nice. Actually, I have to ask you, why do you not put your podcast on YouTube?
The Big Finish podcast.
Both of them.
No, Benji and Nick show is on YouTube.
It is. Oh, there you go. I'm behind the times. But
the Big Finish podcast, I don't believe, is on YouTube, and that may just be to inefficiency.
That's the reason most things happen.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
True. Fine, so let's start going through your Big Finish career, the high sponsor, because we can't go through your full career unless you have another 5 hours.
I always wince when I hear the word career because, I suppose that sounds like there was a plan or, what I do is of any significance. And to me, it just feels like a lot of mucking around.
Yeah, no, it's very clear when you go everything, everything happened from the other. Although I have to say, like another thing I've always liked about your work is how you always you try and push forward the medium. You always try and find new ways of doing, like this. The Cybermen series was recorded live, wasn't it?
Yes, I think certainly the first episode we performed it live. Yeah, with feeding in the sound effects and music.
Right.
I do try to. I mean, it's things to keep your brain tingling, isn't it? Really, and not. I do like. I'm quite childlike in that I like the repetition of things I love, and quite often I'm sure if someone did a critique of my scripts, there are familiar elements that often turn up, but at the same time I'm always trying to think of something new and not always to entirely repeat myself, and so likewise with doing the Cyberman thing live, I just thought that was a fun thing to do at the time. I think as we went through this series, that first series, there were 4 episodes, we did keep recording them in a sort of live recording block where we rehearsed it a couple of times during the day. And then at the end of the day, we did the whole thing, but we didn't quite do it as the full package with all the sound effects and music. I think there was also an issue that it was fairly late in the schedules and that it was the best way to get it done quickly. There's always a practical reason behind it.
Okay, well, I understand it. So I was just doing a video today going over Big Finish on but I've been trying to do videos as a guide to people who are new to Big Finish to be able to get into it, because there's just such a wall of content. You don't know where to start. So
yes.
Yeah, so I did one going over the 8th Doctor releases, and I did one today going over budget releases, things people can get for a bargain. And I was amazed that one of these bargains is Dalek Empire, which is really what I wanted to seg over to when we're talking about the covers, actually, because the covers for Dalek Empire 1 are fantastic. Especially that
I love
one.
them. Yeah.
I love them all. They're so right. So
Clayton Hickman did those, former editor of Doctor Who magazine. He did them, and he went for inspiration. He had this book of classic movie covers, and I wish I could remember the cover that the Dalek Empire 1, Invasion of the Daleks. There was a particular poster that he took inspiration from. And when you see it, he's almost copied it, except for the fact there's a Dalek in it. It's almost an exact copy of this movie poster, but still from the best, I say.
Absolutely, I can almost guarantee it's that first one. That first one is absolutely fantastic. So I just want to tell everybody again, you want to check out Big Finish. To be $2.99 a disc. It's such a bargain, but you get an even more of a bargain when you look at Cyberman. $1.99 a disc. It's fantastic value. So I just recommend this all wholeheartedly. What were your goals with Dalek Empire?
Hold on, let me just cast my mind back a very, very long time. Well, I just wanted to I've always thought of the Daleks as a fantastic way to tell epic war stories and moral stories. The thing I've often said is that the brilliant thing about the Daleks is that because they're so unequivocally nasty, they make your heroic human characters more interesting, braver, puts people in extreme circumstances. And quite often drama is the most effective it can be when people are in states of extreme, aren't they? Rather than people saying, do you want another cup of tea? Yeah, I'll have another cup of tea. That's not quite so interesting as people struggling for their life. I mean, I do think there's a real important place for dramas about people having cups of tea, but I love the big bombastic style. I love war stories. I'm fascinated by human beings at their best and worst pushed together. I find that very, I don't know, it links right back into my childhood, really. I watching war films with my dad, and those really affecting documentaries about the horrors committed during the Second World War, for example.
Well, one of the things that I really liked about Dalek Empire, and I think about the Cyberman series as well, is that, especially Dalek Empire, when you had Susan Mendez, who was a very an ordinary person, it's a normal person put into an extraordinary situation, and you saw the human within her develop. I think struggle is often. Struggle is something that nobody likes to be in, but it's very, very good for you. And I think you really see that.
Well, it can provoke good things, I think. Yes, you don't really ideally want to put yourself in a position where you have to struggle. But yeah, I mean, it's, some people would say history needs certain people at certain points. And has, when a certain kind of person is needed to resolve a certain kind of situation, people who in other circumstances would have not risen to the top do. I mean, to be a tiny bit historically controversial, that's the situation with Winston Churchill. I mean, I think
I was just thinking of that. I thought
if there hadn't been a Second World War, Winston Churchill would not have become so famous. He would have, his career would have just fizzled away. But because he was the right kind of personality, his personality. I mean, I think it's fair to say that any other political figure in Britain at the time would have just surrendered to Nazi Germany, because it seemed like madness to try and fight them. Right.
Of course, you play Churchill in the sequel to. Oh, it reminds me. I'm going to pull this off the screen because I have to do some channel stuff. But that reminds me, you played Churchill in the sequel to Carnival of Monsters. I like everybody watch
Doctor Who Live.
Which I couldn't see because I was not in the same. I wish it traveled. I couldn't see. I managed to pull off bits from YouTube and watch the whole thing. It was so much fun. I love the design of Matt Smith in that cage thing by doing 4 screens. So clever.
Yes, well, he'd pre-recorded these bits, and so we just, by the magic of learning our lines, we were able to appear like we were having conversations with them. I mean, I don't think the audience would fool for one moment, but it was fun. It was fun, And Matt did come along to the first performance, I remember, so that was nice.
Right. But, I wish there was. You know what? That's what virtual reality would be great for. Virtual reality, some kind of experience where you're right in the middle. And that seems like that. So anyway, I just want to interrupt for a second. Can I ask everybody hit the subscribe button? Also, I give things away on my channel. I'm profoundly grateful for people who come here. Firstly, go to the video notes. There is a link to a Doctor Who story starring Nicholas Briggs as a Doctor from the mid-80s. This week it's Minuet in Hell, the audio visuals one. I put a different one up each week, and these are all completely illegal. Do not endorse them in any way. Do not share them.
Neither do I.
but they're very good. They're awfully good. I have to tell you, they're very good.
Well, it's what you're witnessing there in the whole audio visuals thing is, where I learnt my craft in terms of storytelling and editing and all that kind of stuff. Because one of the most important things, when people say to me, I want to write, how do I do it? I think the best way to learn to write and to create is to put yourself in a situation where you can complete stuff. Because the biggest problem when you're struggling as a writer and you're sitting down in your little shed or wherever and writing your novel, you get to the end of chapter 1 if you're lucky, and then you kind of, who's going to read it? Where's this going to go? You have to have an enormous amount of drive to get it out there. Whereas if you're with a bunch of people who decide to do something for fun, like we did with Doctor Who audio plays on cassette all those years ago, then there was a schedule. I had to get these things finished, and it taught me that there is always an end to a creative process, which is a hugely important lesson to learn. And that when you get to the end of it, it doesn't matter if you haven't achieved everything that you want to achieve, because next time round you can have a go at dotting the I's and crossing the T's that you missed last time. It's always it's a cycle of learning, and you just keep going around the same thing, and hopefully it becomes more enriching and more exciting as you go along. I mean, not always. Sometimes you think, I didn't quite do it as well as I did last time. I forgot that lesson I should have learned. But that for me is the whole point of going on doing it.
Right. It's I guess one has peaks and troughs, is it? So, but the thing I really want to tell everybody is Carnival of Monsters. The sequel of it was the Doctor Who Monsters. You can win Carnival of Monsters this week.
Oh.
The special edition, because I got the Blu-ray now, so I give away. Once I get the Blu-ray, I need
the DVD's off. Yes.
All you need to do to win it is subscribe to the channel. Subscribing is the important part, and then in the comments, leave the hashtag Miniscope. Miniscope. Go check the video notes. Just copy and paste it. I've had people have tried everything to do miniskirt, every garbled version of miniskirt. They're all entered. But I normally do the giveaway on Sunday nights. I'm going to give this one a few more days, and then I think next one's going to be Talons of Wing Chiang. So good stuff to win.
Brilliant.
Right, so let me put this back on screen for a second. So I think your first thing, which
just a quick guest appearance there, yeah.
Wait, which one was it? I didn't even see.
Look, that's a proper Doctor Who fan. Which one was it? It's look at the back. Look at the back. It's that one. It's that one.
Yeah, we are the Masters of the. I love that release by Masters of the Earth. Great cover as well.
Oh yeah, it is. It's got one of these in it.
Yeah,
only little.
Okay, so I think your first series that was really a real creative endeavor. I mean, I think the Dalek Empire and Cybermen was kind of doing some kind of drama. The Prisoner, I think, is really it was an expression of you more so than these. Would you agree with that or not?
Well, everything I write is an expression of me in some form or another, but because I always just try and go down to the heart of it, what do I feel? What do I think about this? But it was also an expression of my love for the original series and my sort of interpretation of it and what I felt it was about, which is not quite the same as what it was about, I suppose.
Right, absolutely. I have to say, I fundamentally disagree with you on the premises, especially on the finale, but I really love that you said it as well. That it was your expression. It was.
Well, it's that whatever premise I came up with, it's not there for people to agree with necessarily. It's just there to create a reaction. It's just there as the glue that sticks that particular approach together. And it in a way, it doesn't. Unless you find it really infuriating, it doesn't matter. I mean, I watched a series called Devs recently.
Oh, yes. I didn't find it infuriating, just very, very boring.
Oh, no, well, I didn't find it. I found it. I loved it. But I didn't like the ending at all. But the end, it was an interesting ending. And it was true to what the writer and director, is it Alex Garland? Is that his name?
Yeah, Alex Garland is fantastic talent. I love his work. I would see, for me,
it was true to what he thought.
The ending, I was like, where's this going? If this goes somewhere interesting, it justifies everything. If it doesn't go somewhere interesting, I want my 6 hours back.
and you felt the latter, did you? You thought you wanted it.
Yeah, I thought it had so much scope to really be mind bending, and in the end, it just ended up being a bit ordinary.
I didn't understand why, if she didn't shoot the guy at the end, why it had to go that. You know what I mean? It seemed like cheating to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking about details that people won't understand, but I would recommend people to watch it because I would also recommend watching it with headphones on because the sound design and music in it is just phenomenal. It's inspiring. It's a beautiful piece of work. Yeah.
I mean, well, Nick Offerman was fantastic in it. Nick Offerman, I was getting through it from his performance.
Was he the guy playing the? I forget. I don't know who the actor. I don't know the names of the actors.
The guy in charge of the whatever the company was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was amazing. I thought all the performances were excellent. Actually, I don't think there was a tough one in it.
The other problem with it, I found the central character was just completely not unrelatable. Just I didn't care about her at all. I was just like, by the third episode, I'm like, I just don't like this person very much. It's really
and that's the thing. It does come down to personal stuff like that. I mean, that's a lot of the reason why some actors, some stars, I should say, become stars, because there's something about them. Like we all, even though we can't help it, the moment we meet someone, just by the look of them, we make a value judgment. Now, hopefully, a lot of the time we reassess that. But a lot of the time, that value judgment sticks. And with stars, it being largely about their appearance. They say that when you go for an acting audition, that the casting director has decided whether you've got the job before you've even sat down. Just walking across the room, they've looked at you and thought, this could be good. Or they've thought, nah, no way. The moment they look at you. And I think we do that with people. And I think we do that with our actors as well. And sometimes, there are some perfectly brilliant actors out there who, when I see they're in something, I don't watch it because there's just something on some human level, some prejudiced level, I've objected to them in some way, which is, I usually go back and force myself to try it. But it's difficult, isn't it? When you just feel you fundamentally don't. I mean, I really did relate to her. I found her a fascinating character and quite seductive in that you wanted to find out more about her and you wanted to know what she was thinking. But I can see that she might have looked just a bit blank to other people.
She really did. I don't know. Listen, we could go on about this for quite a while.
Good. I'm sorry, I brought it up now.
I have to say, I preferred, if you're talking about artificial intelligence, I preferred the last season of Westworld, which people hated, but I really liked it.
I've not seen it.
Okay, so the first season, fantastic.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, yeah.
Second season goes off the rails a little bit, but not as much as I think other people would say. But I think the third season brings it back. It's so clever. Trouble is, it's just a fortune. You can see them pouring money into it unnecessarily. I kind of feel that way about the recent Star Treks as well. I think they would be much better if they were a much lower budget, quite frankly. I prefer watching like Star Trek Continues, the fan-made ones, than Discovery.
Oh, they're good, aren't they? Yeah, I like all the new Star Treks. I'm happy with them. I'm not just being nice, Mr. Nicey Nice, non-controversial. I really do like them. I think I had a wobble halfway through the first series of Discovery. I think I thought, oh God, now this is getting a bit dull. But then it picked up and I was happy. Also, you have to realize, I have to realize that sometimes you don't like something because of the mood you're in at the time.
Yeah.
I've gone back and I'm watching Life on Mars. Have you ever seen that? The UK version. When it was on, I was aware, that this was the sort of thing I should like because it's like a vintage cop series and it's sort of sci-fi. It's right in my comfort zone. And I remember being a bit, to use that horrible modern word, meh about it. I remember thinking, yeah, whatever, Life on Mars, don't bother me about it. But I've just gone back and started watching it again. And I thought, was I mad? What kind of depressed, horrible mood was I in when this was on not to love it? I'm loving it now.
Yeah, I just been doing a big rewatch of the Capaldi years, which are so much better the second time round. I mean, I love it, but I just adore it now.
It's a funny thing, isn't it? I was having this sort of chat with a bunch of Doctor Who fan friends that we used to go to the pub together. Now we just meet up on Zoom. Tom Spilsbury is one of the people involved, and who else can I remember? Well, Jason Haig-Ellery, sometimes Stephen Moffat, although not recently on Zoom. And we talk about these things, and it's really weird about your appreciation of, first of all, I think as Doctor Who fans, we get very tense about Doctor Who when it's on. It's like a live show, and it's like, it has to be good, it has to be good, and we judge it too harshly. I think I'm guilty of this myself. And looking back at it later, there's all the pressure's off and you can have a more objective opinion. And also, we were talking about the interesting fact that something seems to happen when you're about 12 years old. If you remain a Doctor Who fan until you're 12, that's when you reach peak Doctor Who obsession. I'm generalizing, of course. And then almost immediately reaching that sort of peak obsessiveness about it and loving everything about it, you start to hate it as well. You start to find things wrong with it because you love it so much. Then it doesn't measure up to the love that, you've put it on the pedestal, and now you start noticing the imperfections. And that's exactly what happened to me. I was 12 when Tom Baker became Doctor Who, and I thought he was fantastic and loved it. But at the same time, I used to write these massive critical reviews of it, where reading them back, you think, and you liked Doctor Who? Well, I hated the Ark in Space, which I think is lovely. I hated Genesis of the Daleks. And yet, I love it now. And I listened to the audio recording I made of it at the time over and over again. So I didn't really hate it, but my God, I moaned about it. So,
we found
it's the crazy thing.
That's very. I think that's fair to say that we fans can be quite passionate about this.
It's all part of being a fan of something. It's the example I always use, like moaning about your home football team. There's no one so critical as the home crowd, is there? They love them, but at the same time, they're, oh, come on,
Right. I wanted to ask you about maybe before we move on from The Prisoner, which I think you did say. I think The Prisoner and Space 1999, which we'll get to in a second, is similar in that they're very, very, very much have the DNA of the original series. They very go to the core of it, yet are completely new. They're completely original, completely new. So if you're a fan of it, you're hearing something new for the first time. Again, if you haven't heard The Prisoner, the first one's $25 if you're outside of England. If you haven't heard the first one, it's very, very good. I have to ask you.
Thank you.
Rights issue?
The theme?
Yeah.
No, there was no rights issue. I deliberately didn't want it to be the same theme tune because I didn't want it to feel as though we could have paid for the rights and done our version of the theme tune. That would have been achievable easily.
Right.
And I did even think about doing it for the very final episode, but then I sort of chickened out.
I love that.
I know, it nearly did it. In fact, there was a version done as well, and Jamie Robertson, the composer, did do that. But I wanted it to sound like it was the same DNA, but slightly different. So, yeah, if I put the original thing, because what we do with Doctor Who, they have the right original themes on them. And what we're saying with those Doctor Who adventures are they fit in between, Planet of Fire and whatever, that ridiculous cat, for example. Let's not go there, folks. But we weren't saying that with The Prisoner. I wasn't saying that what I'm writing, this comes between, the chimes of midnight and Free for All or anything. I wasn't doing that. What I was saying, I was reimagining it. So I don't know. But then I go and flat contradict myself with Space 1999 that does have the original theme. So basically just switch this interview off now because I don't know what I'm talking about. But that was the feeling I had. I thought I want it to sound like it's being played by the same band, but not be exactly the same thing.
Exactly. I wasn't sure if it was a rights issue or if it was
No, it's not a rights issue at all. I wanted that feeling, when I first watched the last episode of there's Space 1999. When I first watched the last episode of The Prisoner, Fallout, and it suddenly went into that new bit of the theme that we hadn't heard previously in any of the other episodes. I remember thinking, oh my God, this is incredible. And I wanted that sort of feeling like it's the same band, but it's a slightly different tune. That was my gut feeling about what I wanted to do. And of course, it's simpler not to sort out the rights, but we could have done it. It would have been absolutely achievable.
Prisoner so good. The Big Finish Prisoner so good. It is its own thing. It's its own entity. I love that you only did it for 3 box sets as well. You made it so. It was so clever. It was so clever and so. What is The Prisoner? It was just it's as if you're going into the DNA of it and you're really picking out all the most important points.
And one of the there are 3 other really important things in that series that made it as good as it was. As Ian Meadows doing the sound design, and it was his first big sound design job for Big Finish. And I said, look, I'd like to start you off on something. I mean, how do you feel about The Prisoner? He just went, oh, God, I love The Prisoner. Are you seriously letting me do The Prisoner? So that was fantastic. And then Jamie Robertson, who just, it took him a couple of goes to get the music right. And then he said, oh, I get it. It's kind of big band and 60s pop fused together. Yes. Now I've got it. And then he absolutely. And he's just absolutely set. And the final really important thing, although there are loads of other important elements, is Mark Elstob playing the prisoner.
Yeah,
where there's a little bit of there's a sort of McGowan-esque thing going on, but at the same time the character's a little bit different, and he's doing his own thing, and his love of the prisoner was just a beautiful thing that we found him. He was an actor I'd worked with 20 odd years before, and I was trying to find someone for whom this job would mean everything. And then I found Mark, and
I think you absolutely struck gold, because it's a performance. It's not an impersonation. It's a performance, but it really goes down to that core, like, simmering anger that McGowan had for all, was it 17, 18 episodes? I can't remember. But
17 of the original, never stops being angry.
Right. And there's little like inflected, like the what?
And there's that, there's that interview with Patrick McGowan that was done in 1977, with a Canadian bunch of students. I seem to remember, the one where they're chain smoking.
Yes, I know exactly the one.
McGowan's still angry. It's 10 years later, and he's still angry. the issues in the series, he still snaps at the guy. And I love the fact that the interviewer is totally immune to the assault he's getting. You can tell that McGowan wants to rip his head off a couple of times, and the guy goes, "Yeah." So, carries on doing the interview. It's fascinating if you watch that on the internet. So I'm playing with a Dalek. What's the matter with me? I'm a child.
I wish you could see what I could see on top of my desk. I've a ridiculous amount of Doctor Who. I had an insurance adjuster come in about a year ago to do a valuation, and it's like this ultra orthodox rabbi guy, like big, the ring, like everything, like the super ultra orthodox. And he came into my office. He looked around. He's like, "Vos?" His mind couldn't comprehend why toys were lined up on shelves neatly. It's like, what?
Brilliant. Did it put your premium up?
Yeah, well, no, actually, he didn't. I tried to explain to him they're very expensive. I want to replace them, but that actually made him angry.
Yeah, some of them might be unobtainable if they ever get destroyed as well. You can't get them all, can you? I suppose you'd have to go on eBay and pay a fortune for some of them.
I was just toying around with this. I was making a Time Lord Victorious figure from Turner.
Oh wow, yeah, David Tennant in his Time Lord costume, brilliant.
No, that was that's the only disappointment from that. Was character options are not on the licensees. Eagle Mosses. Are there any more character options? Big Finish them, because they were. Yeah. Here's what I want. I'll catch the chase.
Okay, write this down. Character options if you're watching.
The Perceptor, the Dalek from the one with the little X.
The Chase.
What?
From the Chase, you mean?
No. The one from Time War stories. The War Doctor stories is a Dalek.
Oh yeah.
Circles going around
with
the outside.
Yeah, with their sort of strange, sort of.
That's the one. That's what I want. That with a Paul McGann. Okay, that's the sold. You're in.
Yeah, they'd have to do a big remold for that.
Yeah, it's not.
That's the trouble. And that's really expensive to do. So it's when they've got their basic Dalek model, which they can sort of adapt in some ways. But yeah. But I don't want to speak for them. I'd love them to do that.
They were very, especially the Dark Eyes set that came out. That was very. Speaking of which, Dark Eyes, Daniel Leach is a fantastic chap who's in the audience, and he absolutely loves Dark Eyes. I think we all do.
Well, I certainly do, but I'm a bit biased.
You are a bit biased. So Dark Eyes, I think, was the second reboot of the Eighth Doctor. You had
I suppose you could call it that. Yes.
Right. So the second one was the Lucy Miller, which basically you invented as well. I think you were the driving force behind the Eighth Doctor.
Well, I can quickly tell you about that if you like. The Lucy Miller thing happened because Radio 7, as it was then, it's 4 Extra now, but Radio 7 were interested in having more Eighth Doctor stuff from us, because the then head of Radio 7 was a big fan of Paul McGann. She said, "Oh, I really like Paul McGann. Can you do some that, you know, we could have not exclusively on the channel, but that could come to the channel the same time that you release them?" And so Jason Haig-Ellery, you know, chairman of the company, co-executive producer with me, was coming up with ideas about it, and he got Alan Barnes, who was our main script editor then, to come up. Where Jason came up with a few ideas for a character, which Alan sort of saw some worth in, but said, "I've got a better idea that will," you know. So Alan worked out the basics of Lucy Miller, and I started having conversations with him when it really wasn't my job to, because Gary Russell was the producer of Big Finish then. But Gary was sort of on the verge of leaving at that point. I don't think we knew that then, but he left shortly afterwards. So the first thing I did, where I was sort of fully in charge, was those Eighth Doctor adventures. And that's when Alan and I talked about, I made various suggestions about Lucy, but she was very much Alan's creation, really. But I think we all developed her and loved her. And once we had Sheridan on board doing it, we were all falling over ourselves to write for the character, because Sheridan brought it to life so brilliantly. And it's so fantastic she came back relatively recently to do the further adventures of Lucy Miller, which we had such a ball doing. It was lovely to see Sheridan again. She's such a lovely human being.
I actually think that's probably one of the greatest companion arcs and leaving story. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. To the Death. What's the one before it? The Dalek one before it.
I think it's called. Isn't it called Lucy Miller? Or
Lucy Miller was the last one. Then To the Death, and you had that last season of the Lucy Miller one they were better and better and better.
To the Death has a clue in the title about what happens. I'm just saying, folks. I don't think life should be all about surprises. It's more, we love stories, really, generally. I'm not just using the Big Finish tagline there. We love stories generally because of how they unfold, not what's in them. That's the funny thing, is that, you know, that's why you can watch your favorite film over and over again, not going, "No, but I know that so-and-so gets blown up at the end," or "I know that they get married in the end." It doesn't bother us, because we love to see the dance. We love how it unfolds, I think.
So you moved on from them, and you did these. I think that's when the box sets really started. The Lucy Miller, not Lucy.
That's right.
The Dark Eyes box set.
Yeah. Yes.
So what were your thoughts going into that?
Yes, it's difficult to cast my mind back. Well, we knew we were sort of creatively exhausted after what happened at the end of the Lucy Miller ones. Let me put it that way. And so we took a little bit of time off, and we put Paul McGann back in what we strangely call our main range, and for 3 adventures. He did 3 adventures with Mary Shelley.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, a bit of controversy there. And while we were doing that, I was working with Alan on what we could do next. And I think it was Jason said, you know, I'd really like to. There was some evidence that box sets seem to sell better and give more of an epic scope all in one go. You could do a 4-hour story. And so I started work on an idea, and it just became I set myself the task, I thought, in a fantasy and completely unachievable situation, if I were ever to be, you know, running the TV series, what would I try to do? And I thought, I know, I'll write in 4 hours what would be my thing at this moment in time, the way I'm thinking now. I thought back then to do a series of Doctor Who, and I thought, I'm going to do a series that is all about the Doctor and the companion, and it's mainly just their bits. There was hardly any cutting away to other situations in Dark Eyes. It was all about that, really. It was all about their emotional journey, and I wanted it to be very much about the companion and quite a mystery about her. I also wanted to set it in the First World War, because I think it's a fascinating and disturbing time in history, and I knew that Paul McGann had an interest in the First World War, and I thought, well, I want to really grip him here, and it did work. You know, my trick worked, and he was very invested in it. So
Well, she was fat. Who was it that played companion Dark Eyes? I don't know.
It was Ruth Bradley, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Is that a name?
That sounds
Yeah.
feels fantastic. The tardy box.
Amazing.
Boxes.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely amazing. Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
wish.
free. That's available for free right now. Big Finish, the first.
I know. Yeah, The Great War, the one that
Oh,
won the award as well,
wow!
the
Yeah.
BBC Audio Drama Award. Yeah.
If you haven't heard it, this is I'm pulling up right now. Big Finish. How many Big Finishes tabs can I open at one time? Is a question.
Let's just wait until your browser crashes.
It's getting there. Oh, look at that! First, 1 second. How do I share this? Oh no, I just lost it. There we go. Great.
I like you whizzing around.
Share screen. That's what I was looking for. Chrome tab. It is. Weekly deals. I guess weekly deals. Is that the tab?
Yeah.
There we go.
Is it coming up? There we are. Yeah.
Wait, the whole first box set for $14.99. Really?
You've got this. You've got this.
I actually see. It's so embarrassing. Is that tags on everything? It's
so yeah, you can get that. You can get that for free.
Okay,
so that's brilliant.
I've been talking about Big Finish bargain. This check out the free one, but this is a box set. You if you don't own it, you must own this. This is an absolute must listen. This is, I think, as classic as Doctor Who can possibly get. So I guess I'll put that link in the video notes as well.
If you would, that would be great. Listen, I'm going to have my lunch soon. I'm really hungry. So let's talk about the human frontier.
Sorry, I do apologize.
No, don't apologize. I'm really enjoying it.
So let me pull this off, and I'll open up the window for. What do I look at? Big Finish originals, it's collections, audiobooks. Original. There we go.
This is a lesson in navigating the bigfinish.com site.
By the way,
where is it again?
If we're talking, there we go. We're talking originals. My favorite one thus far has been the Holy Terror. Is that Holy Terror? What's it called again?
No, Blind Terror.
Blind Terror. I knew. I was scared of something. I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Human Frontier.
Stuff.
Fine. Let me pull it. Okay, so fine. I have one question about this before. I'll turn everything over to you to talk about this. The number one question that's going to be on my main audience's mind is this: that for we started this. It seems to us, me, for the last several years, through our entertainment media, especially our beloved science fiction franchises, they've been very, very unsubtly screaming messages to us, which no one in their right mind would disagree with. Like messages like "women are people too," skin color. And again, I don't know anybody who could possibly have a problem with that. I've never met anybody who could possibly have a problem with that.
Have a look on the internet. There are quite a few of them on there.
Okay, but in science fiction. So no, my question is this, and this is terrible. I can't believe that we got to this point in 2020. Whenever these messages are coming in, it is met with a real drop in quality. It's just a general sense it's a drop in, and I'm not talking about any specific franchise. So you have a dark-skinned woman on the cover, and I hate it. I'm crawling inside my skin that I'm even asking you this. But we've been trained like Pavlos to be have a negative reaction to this now, and I feel terrible that's the case. But what can you do to dissuade me of this fear? I'm so ashamed that I feel this way.
Yeah, well, I think that, if I may, I think one of the things you're objecting to is you feel like you're being preached at, don't you? And
no,
you haven't asked for that.
Preaching at me from it because with my
say again. Sorry, I didn't quite hear, and I want to make sure I get this right.
And my problem is, I'm scared I'm going to be preached at, which is my experience. My experience with your work is that's never happened, but my experience when I see, this kind of imagery, that it comes along with it hand in hand, which is terrible. It's just terrible. So discuss.
Well, first of all, it just happens to be that one of the two actors playing the leads is a black actor, a female black actor. That's the first thing. That's not. I didn't set out saying, I know what we'll do. We'll have a black actor in it, and ha ha ha.
And it's so embarrassing that people think that there are people who think that way. It's like
I just think she looks amazing in that spacesuit, though, doesn't she?
Is this a real costume she's in?
It's a real costume. Yeah, that thing is virtually no CG at all. That is just her in the thing in a car park. There'd been a lot of jokes about the Big Finish car park. It's not the one downstairs. It's the one at the top. It was a very dull day, so that's the actual color of the sky. And the photographer just put a big night light next to her. And it just started to rain. So there were tiny little specks of moisture on the lens, which sparkled like that. So that's what, and then Pepta just did this pose. And it was just, we also put the other actor, Genevieve Gaunt, in it as well. And even though she's a very striking person, her poses weren't as dramatically effective as Pepta's. So we just thought that when I saw that picture, I just thought this is the image of it. And actually, just before release, there's going to be something added to that image, something a bit more alien and terrifying is going to be.
I was going to say this cover looks a little underwhelming.
Oh well, not to me. I mean, I love the simplicity of it. But it takes all sorts to make a world and all different tastes. But no, I just wrote this story from the heart, from my gut instincts, and I didn't think, it's going to be all about women and ha ha ha. I'm going to preach to people. I just wrote what I wanted to write, what I wanted to say, and I can't honestly tell you exactly why it turned out that way. I just wanted to explore it, and it is. I don't think there's anything wrong with over tipping the balance in favor of people who were discriminated against in the past. I don't think there's anything wrong about that. I think it can sometimes look a bit tokenistic and irritating to some people, but I'm not seeking to preach to anyone. I'm just talking about human beings and all the different kind of human beings there are, and human beings who are not like me, so I'm trying to explore everything, and this is very much in the nature of this story in the Human Frontier, because I'm fascinated by what are prevailing ideas and what then become unacceptable later. And the fundamental tension in this story is about people from 300 years apart, two different human societies who were unaware of each other suddenly coming together. And you just imagine if people from 300 years ago, I mean, really not in a Doctor Who kind of way, if someone from 300 years ago were able to walk into a room and have a conversation with you. I mean, firstly, and I was going to explore this in the series, but it was too difficult, so I chickened out. Firstly, there would be a huge language barrier, even if they were, allegedly English speaking. Secondly, their assumptions about almost everything about how the world works and what the human being's relationship to nature and life and the universe is would be totally different. And it would be almost impossible for us to find any common ground with them. All assumptions would be different. And I'm fascinated by how human beings fictionalize their world. We all come up, every generation, every year these days comes up with their own view of what reality is. And it's so... we become aliens to ourselves. I think human beings alienate each other by by the fictions they create. And I'm not using fiction in a derogatory term, because you'll be able to tell I've been reading that book Sapiens, but there's one of our greatest fictions is democracy. I mean, I totally believe in it, but we made it up. It didn't come down from on high. It's something we made up with our own minds. I mean, this is probably where we'll disagree about things. And ideas about justice and freedom, these are not things that exist on their own, in their own right. These are things that we invented. Human beings invented them because we felt they'd be useful to making the world a better place for us. We invented them. And I think that, what I'm doing in this drama is that people with two sets of invented realities are coming together. And I don't make a judgment as to who's right. I mean, I change my mind throughout the story about who is right and who is wrong, because actually that's the truth of the world. There's no, in my view, I think there are certain fundamental things. We don't want anyone killed, do we? We don't think that's a good idea. But then we willingly go to war and we think, well, in this circumstance, it's probably all right to kill those nasty people. You know, it's all about value judgments. And that whole mess of ideas that I'm talking about there, to which there's no satisfactory answer, that is the ground, that is the area in which this drama is based. Also, it's got a lot of cool spaceships and, you know, sci-fi stuff in it as well. So, you know.
Yeah, so this sounds so incredibly contemporary. It sounds like it's really got its finger on the pulse of this cultural divide. That, like, I think it's easing up now. Really, I think honestly, this whole
no. I'll tell you what's happening. We're just getting weary of it. I don't think it's easing up. I think we're just going. Oh.
I am so sick of fighting. I'm sick of it. I really am. Yeah. We are weary of it, but it seems so incredibly contemporary. Well,
I can only write about what's in my head at the time. That's the thing. You can only mine your mind for what's going on in it at that time, I think, and that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I'd had the idea of the story in my head for well over 3 years, and then just because of schedules and my mad life, I ended up writing it quite quickly, but it was an incredible experience. It's like my good friend Samuel Clemens, who's the son of the late Brian Clemens, you know, who wrote The Avengers and all that, you know, told me, he said what his dad used to do, he used to think about a script for ages. It would be mulling in his mind while he was doing other things, while he was producing, while he was writing other scripts, and he'd have this story in mind, and then he would sit down at his typewriter, not his computer, his typewriter, and he would just type it all out in one go with virtually no mistakes at all. Bash, 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 and that's it. That's not exactly what I did with The Human Frontier, but I think there's something to be said for that, to build up the steam of this story and all the ideas and characters, and for it to come out in one go. I always have to do the sound effects.
I say, I was buying it because I like you. I'm really excited by it now. I'm genuinely excited by it. It sounds like you're talking about something of great interest to me. Anyway, I think much of my audience. I think that you will probably dislike it immensely, but find that an interesting process. I mean, I like what you said about you not making value judgments on either. That sounds fantastic. It's like, everybody's wrong and everybody's right all the time. I do.
Nobody knows anything really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, when we're in the middle of an argument with someone, that's just what we don't want to hear, you know, because we want to be right. Of course we do. Yeah, our whole sanity is based on that.
So do we know who's starring in it? Anybody we may know?
No, I don't think so. So Pepta Lucuse and Genevieve Gaunt. I mean, you can look them up, and they've done things. Clive Wood, you may have heard of. He's had a fantastic career with the Royal Shakespeare Company and been in all sorts of movies and iconic TV shows. I mean, I was just reviewing.
I know people from, like, if they were the plywood spaceship. Yeah, anybody hang out with any of those, then we'll recognize them.
But I don't think anyone has had any experience with a plywood spaceship. Is that what you were asking? Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
No, I'm saying that's probably the only people that would, you know, that we recommend. When's it being released? Do we know? Can you?
Well, it's a moot point. I mean, when's it? Hold on, let me look at the date now. Yeah, it's meant to come out on the 26th of May, and I'm doing the music for it. I've done the music for the first 3 of the 4 episodes, and I'm working on the 4th episode. So I'm hopefully going to finish it this week. That's the advantage of it being download only. We don't have to send it to the pressing plant.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm hopefully going to finish it midweek this week. In fact, you're actually stopping me from doing it now.
No, I feel slightly bad, but not very bad. So listen,
I volunteered. I said I'd come on this show.
You did. Yeah, that's true.
It's all my fault. It's all my fault.
So I'm hoping, again, we grumble a lot here in the Founder Mess. Nick has come. He's answered our questions, I think, straight on, and I have so much respect for that. And I think your answers have been fantastic.
Thank you. I get a review as well. It's amazing.
Sorry?
I get a review for my interview. Thank you.
I review everything. My wife hates it. I review everything. It's like I was just reviewing how wonderful it is now. Our kids are finally left after 3 months of sitting. How old's your son?
He's 10.
He's 10. Okay, I have a 17-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 23-year-old, and the 21-year-old was thankfully in the army. So he was. But they've been sitting under my feet for the last 3 months. Oh my God! And the last. I can't wait. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
My wife has been handling the homeschooling, so I've been spared that stress.
So I was reviewing like how wonderful the house is without the hell I'm eating up.
I give this house 5 stars.
So anyway, so I just want to throw this up one more time. I want to make it an appeal to everybody watching. We grumble a lot in the Fandom Menace. Nick here has come and done everything that we've been craving people to. Please click the link right now. I want everybody to express and pre-order it. I want everybody to express our appreciation for it, and B, show Nick what an economic force we are, because we are. We all agree. We agree on so much more than we disagree. So I would love Big Finish to survive and prosper. I really love there to be a second and third and fourth season, or however many season this goes to. It's a fantastic idea. It's a really fantastic premise.
Thank you.
I do hope you've got a very full shopping cart. You got that. You got The Prisoner. You got Dark Eyes, £15. Go and get Dark Eyes. What's wrong with you? Yeah, Dark Eyes. It's brilliant. You got Space 1999. Are we getting any more of those? What's happening with that?
Yeah. I just recorded one the other day. There's more coming. There are announcements coming. Yeah. I'm script editing scripts. There's plenty going on. Yeah.
So the Space Nine, exactly like The Prisoner, it goes directly to the DNA, but it's a lot cleverer, I think, than the original TV show.
Well, it's very kind of you to say so. I couldn't possibly comment.
It's a lot. It's longer.
It's longer, mate. That's the main thing. It's longer. Yeah, get more for your buck.
The quality, fill the width.
Sorry, I didn't hear that last bit.
Never mind the quality, fill the width.
That used to be the name of a sitcom, didn't it?
It did. Yes, it did. The Rag Tree, wasn't it? It was also,
I don't know. It was. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Yes, I mean the space. I loved the Space 1999 thing. So thank you very much.
It's good. It's good. Listen, again, I'm a terrible salesman unless I love it, and I really do love it because it's really, really, really good. Fine. I think we have to let Nick go and have lunch. What do you have for lunch?
I've no idea. It'll probably be some form of sandwich that my wife has made for me.
Your wife makes you. My wife. Okay, I'm going to end on this story. my wife once asked me, what would you like for lunch? I said, can I have a cheese sandwich? And she's like, a cheese sandwich? I'm not going to make you a cheese sandwich. I'm like, well, why not? She's like, well, you can make your own cheese sandwich. I'm like, basically, the cheese sandwich was too small of a meal to make.
I see. Yeah.
So I was like, well, I just want a cheese sandwich. So there you go. That's it.
Did you have to make it yourself? Did you end up making it yourself?
No. After I'm not exaggerating. A 3-hour fight. A 3-hour fight. We made me a cheese sandwich. I made her one as well.
It's what we call cheese sandwich gate.
That was, yes. So, yeah, please. Well, we're gonna let Nick go and have something. Again, hit the subscribe button. Go and fill up your shopping cart. Big Finish is a fantastic company that has done so much to support us. I think it's incumbent upon us to support them in any way we can. If you're on a budget, check out my other video that's coming out either today or tomorrow. Big Finish on a budget. It will help you. What do you watch this interview if you're not in the whatever. I'm sure you watch it for some reason. So go fill up your shopping cart. And everybody, have a fantastic day. Thank you so much, Nick, for coming on.
Thank you. What a pleasure.